Hey guys, it's Will here, and as those of you who've been watching my videos regularly know, I've been trying for a little while now to really get the hang of my Space Marines and play them a little bit better and list build with them a little bit better. And as a result of this, I feel like I'm getting to be a bit of a better Space Marine player now. I'm by no means the best, and my lists and my collection aren't, by any means complete or perfect yet, but I feel I'm learning some things, and I thought that might be nice to do a few little tactical videos on certain things, little tricks with Space Marines that I've discovered work quite well for me. So today I'm going to be talking about combat squads. Now, a little disclaimer on this: a lot of this doesn't just come from personal experience, but is also tricks I've picked up from other YouTubers. I think particularly Fritz40k. He's a good bloke, and he's put some good videos out on this subject. But I wanted to do my little own take on tactical squads, and specifically on combat squadding, and give you some examples, actual worked examples of how combat squadding can really benefit your force. So there's my my tactical squad, and as you can see, I've got the full 10 guys in here: sergeant, special weapon, and heavy weapon. I'm not going to talk too much about the loadout, because really the aim of this is to talk about the whole the effect of combat squadding. So I'm going to so those of you who don't know, combat squads, any Space Marine unit with the combat squad rule, which is the vast majority of them, can split into 2 5-man squads as long as the squad number's 10. So tactical squads are the most common ones that you'll see doing this, but scout squads, devastator squads, assault squads, bike squads, stone guard squads, even terminators, they can all do it if you take large enough squads of them. But generally tactical squads are the most likely thing you'll see combat squadded. And essentially these two squads can work as completely separate units for all game purposes, things like victory points, scoring objectives, targeting. The only thing that they do gain is that they can move in transports together. So you can stick 2 5-man combat squads, as long as they are from the same original 10-man squad, into a single Rhino transport or a single drop pod. So there's some little tricks and shenanigans you can do with that. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to show you a few little examples of how combat squadding and the whole concept of multiple small units can really give your Space Marines a bit of a boost. Okay, so this first example is meant to show how combat squads can increase the overall survivability of the unit. And so as you can see here, I've initially got my full 10-man squad. These guys for this first part are going to be acting as a full 10-man unit, and up against them we've got an Imperial Knight. Very common sight on the battlefield. I think I faced 2 or 3 of them in the last tournament I played in, and in a game just the other night I faced 3 of them at once. So yeah, a realistic example there, and with that 2-shot battle cannon, a real threat to my Space Marines. So let's see how this is going to work out when the Knight starts to shoot them. So we've got our big pie plate here, and we're going to place it on this guy here. I'm having to do this one-handed, so that's the centre of the first shot, and we're going to scatter that. Okay, so that scatters, but it's only 4 inches, so that's going to be a direct hit. So that is, if we look down here, going to give us 5, just about edging 5 wounds, 4 or 5 wounds. And this is a 2-shot weapon, so second one, that's going to scatter across, so that's going to be 3 inches, so 3 inches, it's pretty much straight down the line. That's going to go down here, and that's going to catch another 5 dudes. So overall we've got 10 hits there, and these are wounded on a 2+, not allowing any armor saves. So we've got there 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dice. Okay, so 1 has survived. So from this whole squad, we've got to remove all of these guys, and it's just the 1 dude left out on his own. So that is 8 Space Marines from 1 round of shooting from the knight when they are moving as a full squad. Now let's see what would happen if the Space Marines had instead gone into combat squads. So here we've got the two combat squads instead of the 1 full squad. They've separated with about 7 inches between them, and this is to give them good spacing, but so they can act separately or can come together, because even though they are 2 separate squads and they can't rejoin, it will allow them to focus their effect on a single target rather than having to operate entirely independently. And once again, we've got the knight looking down at them, ready to do some damage. So for straight up, he can't pick both squads as his target. I mean, he could fire his heavy stubber at the other one, but the 2-shot battle cannon has got to go on 1 unit. So we're going to do this one simply because they're closer. This time pie plate goes down and he's catching 4 if he scores a direct hit. See how that goes. So the first one is a hit, so that's 4. And the second one is another hit. So that's 8 in total. So these are 8 dice and they are wounding on 2+. So this is going to probably kill them all. Yep, even with a bad roll there, that's 5 deaths. So this whole squad is dead. That's 5 dudes. But then the other squad is entirely unaffected. They don't have to take a leadership test. They weren't part of the same squad. The hits don't carry on to another unit, even though he would have done more kills than would have been needed to finish these guys off. Under normal circumstances, that he'd have had enough damage to hurt these guys, but because they're a separate squad, no, they're perfectly fine. And that means either my opponent's going to have to dedicate another unit to shooting them, or these guys are going to live to fight another day. So there we go, straight away, combat squads instantly increase the survivability of your Marines, particularly against your enemy's heaviest firepower. Now, this doesn't just apply to Space Marine squads. I mean, it's only Space Marine squads that can combat squad, but this idea of having multiple small units, or MSU as it's commonly known, is something that can apply to all armies. I've got my Eldar jet bikes over here, and these guys are another great example of MSU. You can take absolutely loads of them in an army. I think squads can be up to 10, but they're troops choices, and they're probably your best troops choice. So it's entirely possible an Eldar player might want to take 6 units of these. 6 units of 3 versus, say, 3 units of 6 instantly increases the survivability for the same reason. You've got, if a unit has enough firepower to kill 5 of these guys, if there's only a squad of 3, you're only going to be killing those 3. Wounds don't stack onto the next squad. It equally applies in combat, and also allows them to shoot extra targets. So there we go, that's the first example where MSU is increasing the survivability, but there's a few other little things that you can do with it. So in this next example, I'm going to show you how combat squads can buy you a little bit more flexibility in your army without spending any extra points. So here I've got my tactical squad again, and as you can see, I've split them into 2 combat squads. One half has got the flamer and a combi flamer on the sergeant. The other one has a heavy bolter. You could easily switch these out for other weapons, it's just the ones I happen to have on here. And they've got a rhino transport, which is a very good option for Space Marine squad. The only reason I wouldn't buy a rhino is if I'm buying them something else or I have a very specific role in mind. But anyway, if this was a full squad of 10 dudes, they could all go in the rhino. If it's 2 5-man squads, they can't go in the rhino. If, however, it's a 10-man squad that has chosen to combat squad into 2 5-man squads, then they can go in here. So you've effectively got 2 units going in 1 transport. Now here I've got the battlefield reset a little bit, got a piece of scenery here with an objective, and this is more meant to represent a midfield objective. This isn't, I know it's very close to the edge, I've just got 1 tile out. This really represents something that's in the middle of the table that, isn't a long way away, but you're going to have to move to get to it, so you can't camp your heavy weapons team or your predator on there. You're going to have to send something up to get it. And over the far side here we've got another objective marker, and here we've got some cowardly Eldar hiding behind an Imperial Aegis line, hoping that that's going to save them. It won't. Anyway, if we have our full 10-man squad, they've not combat squadded, and they've gone in this Rhino, they face a decision. They can drive up to midfield, sit there, they can disembark, or they can stay in the Rhino, and yeah, they are going to have to either sit there, they have to sit there and then hope something else can get to that objective, or they can push up past that objective, hoping someone else can claim objective 5 here, and take the fight to the enemy on objective 3. They can't do both. They're going to have to make a decision. Now, rewind. Let's say we combat squadded. Rhino moves up, and the first half of the squad can get out. You know, you've got the objective on a building, you can even stick your heavy weapon in there. You've got 4 bolter guys and a heavy weapon. Get out. Now they can claim that objective. They've moved up to midfield, so the bolters will be in range. The heavy bolter has got a static position to fire from, so from next turn he's going to be able to lay down the full effect of that weapon. And then you've got your other squad, the flamer dudes, still in the Rhino, and now they can push up and join in the attack on the enemy position. And yeah, that's going to allow them to get their flamers into range and rapid fire their bolters, chuck in crack grenades, frag grenades even, and generally do some nasty damage. Again, you wouldn't send a single 5-man squad out as part of this, it would be part of an overall attack, but here the one squad is able to do both. It can camp the objective and it can push forward, all for a single squad, and only needing to buy 1 transport for them rather than pay for 2 transports. So this is a good example of how a little bit of extra flexibility can come to your army from combat squadding. So in this third and going to be for today final example, I'm going to show you a little trick to get the most out of your drop pods by using combat squads. Now, when you come down with the drop pod, you are right in the enemy's face usually. No point deep striking away from your enemy, you've got to get right up there. And so you need to make sure that a squad coming down in a drop pod does the maximum damage on a turn that it arrives. Otherwise, you risk being overwhelmed before you've been able to do the job, particularly against an enemy that has a lot of assault troops, such as these orcs here. So here we've got Sternguard. Now I've chosen Sternguard for this because they're a particularly good example. They work very well for this, and this is a squad I've used reliably to really pull off some very nice alpha strikes at the start of the game. Now this whole little bunch does run you close to 300 points, so you know you need to be making sure this squad is going to do the maximum damage when it comes down. So what have we got here? We've got 3 guys with combi melters, and then 2 guys with bolters, and then 1 guy with a combi flamer and 2 heavy flamers, and then 2 regular dudes with bolters there. And they are going to today be taking on orcs. We've got a battle wagon here, there's a war boss in there, we've got a pain boy, and going to be a mob of boys, so it's going to be a fully loaded battle wagon. And this is obviously going to want to get up the table as fast as possible, get those troops into combat, get the war boss doing some work, and use the pain boy to boost the reliability. And we're going to want to stop that. To be honest, it doesn't matter about the points value that's in there, it's about stopping it from doing the work. And for that, we're going to use our Sternguard. Sorry about the light there, sun's setting, it's starting to blaze through the window a bit. So, here we go. I'm going to bring down our drop pod here, nice and close. And before the start of the game, we would have declared that this squad is combat squadding. So, deployment. Scatters this way 5 inches. So that's not terrible. We can work with that. So, yeah. So that comes to there. Drop pod comes down, and the hatches blow. It's going to take 2 hands, so I'm going to show you how I've deployed the Sternguard. So as you can see here, both of these squads have moved to position to attack the battle wagon. We've got the Melter squad there and the Flamer squad there. Splitting down the weapons allows them to target 2 different things. So we're going to fire the melter weapons first. And so we've got 3 melter guns here. And we've scored 2 hits and a miss. Now these are salamanders, so we can reasonably assume I've got Vulcan in the list. Or if not, there are other ways Sternguard can gain preferred enemies, such as 1st Company Strike Force. So I'm going to reroll that. There we go, 3 melter hits. Now, because of the drop pod, we've been able to go into the side of the wagon. So that's going to be armour 12. And also, we've been able to get nice and close. So let's see. First one is a glancing hit. There's a penetrating hit. And that one is another penetrating hit. So I've got 2 glances and a pen. So the glancing hit obviously just strips the whole point. And the penetrating hits... Boom, there's our 6. Now, that didn't need to be a 6. That could have been a 4, and this would have still exploded with melter weapons at an open-topped vehicle. So, yeah, there's our battle wagon gone. And now the boys have to get out. Now, the way the rules are written, when a vehicle explodes, you don't do a standard disembark, but instead the models are placed where the transport previously was. So I'm just going to set that up and show you the second part of this plan. And now we can see the orcs have disembarked. I'm going to assume for this that they just took a couple of casualties from the explosion and passed their pinning check through mob rule. They've got a pain boy in there, so that's you can reasonably assume that, and they've got the high leadership of the boss. Then, now we've got the second squad. Now I'm not going to dice roll this out because I haven't got my flamer templates, but what we've got in there is 2 dudes with bolters with special ammo, 2 heavy flamers, and a guy with a combi flamer. And that could make some real mess of these guys when that fires. So as you can see, by using the combat squad, I've been able to take out the vehicle and the squad inside it. If I had had to use these as a full squad of 10, they could have still taken the single drop pod, but I'd have only had the melter shots, and then the flamer shots wouldn't have been able to fire at a separate target. If I had instead taken them as 2 squads of 5, which, you know, has its uses, but in this particular scenario that would have been a nuisance because I'd have had to have 2 drop pods, so you've got to get 2 on target, and you can only bring down only bring down half your drop pods, so if you're just running 2 that wouldn't have worked, so this works quite nicely with a single pod. And yeah, it's allowed me to target both of these units, the transport and the squad inside. Now, the final thing I would say with this little combo is they don't have to both be going for 2 units that are effectively the same one. I could quite happily instead have this as a mob on foot and then a separate vehicle over here, bring the drop pod down in between, melter weapons to that side, flamer weapons to that side, hit 2 separate targets out of 1 pod. And that is a really nice way that combat squads can really maximise the damage that your drop pods are dealing out. So thanks a lot for watching this video. It's my first attempt at doing something like this where I've shown very practical tactics with actually showing it out on the tabletop. So if you liked this type of video and you want to see more, then please leave a like and let me know in the comments. If there's something you think I got wrong, perhaps that I've done wrong, or a major flaw with this plan, or you think differently, then by all means let me know. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.